Hello, welcome back to Work in Progress, the show from the Reno Collective about work, life, and everything in between. It always takes me a second to remember what's in between there. My name is Colin.
I'm Rachel, and I'm back after a week hiatus, an
Yes,
unfortunate hiatus. But yeah, it's all that, in between part of work and life that
it
that
happens.
slogged me
It
down.
sneaks up on us.
Yeah,
So we're gonna do
exactly.
a little bit of a faux pas in just mentioning that the stream should be holding, but I'm seeing a little green light that's going orange and yellow, and hopefully that it looks fine on your end. So we're just gonna keep on going for now, and we'll make sure that that thing is solid green next time. So knock on wood that we you guys can all hear us.
We're gonna
Um,
roll with it.
we're rolling with it. So
Hmm.
live to tape. Hopefully this makes it to the internet. Otherwise, we're just gonna have a good chat about our three things this week. So
Yep.
the first one, DIY, overrated or underrated?
Ooh, this is a hard one, and especially because it hits so close to home for us, particularly. We've been doing a lot of DIY. We're very like we're not grassroots. What are we?
Homegrown.
We're bootstraps.
Yeah, we're definitely bootstraps,
Okay,
right?
we're bootstrapped. That's the one I'm looking for. And so we do a lot of work ourselves at nights and on weekends here in the space. And we've had the chance to do more. So I know I've learned quite a bit over the years. Like, for instance, until I worked here, I really didn't understand what those wall stud, when you don't have a stud in the wall and you use the bracket brace
Mm-hmm.
for the screws, I wasn't comfortable with
Oh
using
yeah,
those
anchors.
anchors.
Yeah,
Working here, I had to become very comfortable using them because I needed to put things together and put things up on the wall.
yeah.
So
Well, and
I
our
think
building
it's,
is a little unique in that some of our walls are cinder block and some of our walls are regular
yeah,
construction, and you those some of those things won't go into cinder block, which
right.
is a whole nother problem. And then we have walls that
Oh,
are
yeah.
full of sand, which is a whole different problem that most people don't run into
No.
when your building is not a recording studio.
Yeah, the last thing you expect to come falling out of the wall when you take off a baseboard is sand.
Yeah,
But for soundproofing, apparently it's excellent.
it's one of the better things you can do for sure.
Yes, yeah.
So
So there's a
I
DIY
guess
tip for you home recording studio
just
builders.
fill your walls with sand. I'm sure it's
Be fine.
probably check building code and so forth. But so would you say overrated, underrated? I know we have to do it. It's almost a thing that we do because we kind of
Yeah.
it's necessitated by funding, and we have sometimes more time than money.
Well, I think it's underrated in the way that sometimes being is it self-reliant? Being self-reliant is can be sort of underrated and, can hire someone to take care of X, Y, and Z. Why would I do it myself, right? And so I think like I've learned a lot. I have no desire in learning much more in plumbing, to be honest with you. I'm not a toilet plumbing kind of gal, but some of it, like sinks and such. But just that ability to take care of problems myself. And when I think of DIY, a lot of times I think of problems. But you made a good point before we started, which is DIY is not always about fixing problems. Sometimes it's about building something, and that's a skill that I don't really have. I've sort of learned the problem fixing. So I feel a little bit more, it's not self reliant, but whatever the word is when you're like homesteading and you can
Mm-hmm.
take care of yourself, it's that thing. So I feel more that, but I still am not in the mode of, I want to build a chair or a stool or a desk, or not a desk, like a little side table for my outdoor patio,
Yeah.
which hopefully in the next couple months I'll learn that too when we build our own furniture.
Is that something that you want to build?
You know, I would love to be able to say I could use a side table, so not craftsman, like not totally perfect is not what I'm expecting, but a little side table that I could put like a potted plant on, and I could make my front porch look kind of cute, and I made that, or
Yeah, I
maybe
was
even
gonna say
like build a frame,
I've got a pallet for you out back that we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, that one didn't get on the truck.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's another
Of
episode. It was
course.
supposed to be on the truck.
Um, yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna go with underrated as well. I watch a lot of. I wouldn't even necessarily call some of them are definitely DIYers. I just watched a lot of DIY videos for redoing a bathroom from like
Mm-hmm.
the studs up. But there, I also used to just watch a lot of like woodworking and metalsmithing type videos, which I think are
Yeah.
more in that like sustainable home, homesteading type thing where they're
Yeah.
making something from nothing. But I would say those are more like trade skills, especially the blacksmith that I watch. He's like the youngest world's best blacksmith in the world or something like that, and it's
Wow.
amazing to watch because he's like 25 and he's been throwing a hammer since he was like 12. So
Man, that's amazing.
yeah, if you worry about your kids being around dangerous things, you just get a forge for them and a giant metal hammer. um,
And a match.
but hey, the trades need workers these days. There's a lot of people
Yeah.
are like out retiring out of the trades, and so that people might be
Hmm.
finding themselves DIYing more, or the cost of getting something done in your house or your business is going to cost more because that's
Yeah.
I think that's going to get to be an interesting thing where like where the next plumbers and electricians and
Hmm.
carpenters and all of that come from. But
Yeah. Well, and we see it now. I mean,
mhm.
we've been working with the collective. We've been working with a few people, but we also know that we're sharing them with all of their other jobs.
Yeah.
Wood prices are up tremendously, and so are the people who work the wood and build the thing you need or fix the thing you need. Everybody's in high demand, especially in our area in Reno. But yeah, I mean, it seems like there's kind of that boom all around. So what is it? Demand goes up, supply goes low.
Yep. Supply and demand.
Supply, yeah.
Um,
Just make sure I got that right.
hopefully, I'm just these stats are making me nervous, but hopefully, we're
Uh-oh.
not just robot voices on the other side of this. So if you do any DIY projects out there, please definitely share in the comments. If you like to do things yourself, I think some of the projects that I've done, I definitely, in hindsight, it's things that I'm thinking are going to take a day or a weekend, and they take
Mm,
weeks, or if you have to like find the time at the end of the work day or the weekends, especially when
hmm.
it's nice outside, it's sometimes the last thing you want to go back to.
Yeah.
So definitely, you got to think through like, do I really want to do this? And not that you want to necessarily think of like time versus money, but sometimes it does make sense to maybe use your time to do the thing you're good at and pay someone
Hmm.
who's really good at that to get it done faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and there's times where you have to be honest, and that whole time money equation, if you if your time if it's not worth your time, so whatever the value of your time that it takes you to do something, then you might be spending way too much on a project that you could pay someone else to, and during that time, make more money working
Mm-hmm.
than you would be fixing or building. But then again, if the worth as far as like the self-worth involved in it, like creating a thing versus giving it or versus yeah, giving it to someone else or
Yeah.
buying it fully made, the value in that, like you were talking about crafts and
Yeah.
hobbies and
I mean that bathroom we got a quote, and this is like peak supply and like peak low supply of contractors,
mm,
and it was like $18,000 for the quote, and we did it in 4. It did take
yeah.
us 2 to 3 months of weekends.
Hmm.
So it was a long time, and we were able to take our time with it. There were definitely days
Yeah.
where we were you know uh, not
Done.
wanting to do anymore, and we were done. So it wasn't full days every single day,
Hmm.
but it definitely was. It was a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's a hard one too. It's hard to, if you have the ability to do it, it's hard not to do it because, well, I'm going to save money if I do it myself.
yeah,
Um,
but like
but
that amount of money is a lot of money, and I
oh,
think
that's a
like
huge amount.
that was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
The flooring at the collective, debatable, especially. I mean,
Hmm.
we're gonna take care of it better because we put it in ourselves. So
Oh man, that floor is gonna be babied.
It is. And
Every little nick will be like,
I'm gonna say, like, sometimes when you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself too. So there's
yes,
also that.
yes, there's that too. I agree.
Yeah. So what do we
I
got? What
agree.
do we got next? So there was definitely a lot of this next topic consumed in most of these projects.
Oh man, oh man. Yeah. So the second one is coffee. And we know our coffee because we drink lots of coffee. I'd say like there might be five people, like five members that don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
And it's always like, the kind of the
It's
oddball out. But
it's
we always provide tea
yeah,
as
it's a
well.
pinnacle stop on the tour. So,
Yeah, it is.
and I think I'm surprised that the coffee machine's still going. We're probably gonna have to start looking for a new one soon,
Yeah.
but just so that we have one in the back of our
Like a
mind.
little rainy day fun for when that machine decides it
It's
has done as much as it's willing to.
it's done more than it was designed to do, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have one things I really like that we're doing is we work with a local coffee roaster and coffee company. It's Coffee Bar, which is just, a block above us on Mount Rose Street here in Reno. And they have their own roastery. Um, we know them personally. They travel around the world. They also have, I don't know if they have the winery or the label is theirs on the wine,
Mm-hmm.
but they have their own wine. They've been doing a really neat series online, like a newsletter series about the origins of their coffees. And yeah, so I think it's a really nice way to have a local partnership that isn't, um, it's sort of symbiotic, like our members know that we provide Coffee Bar, and then we're also helping a local business, and it's a business we like that is green. It fits into like who we are as a business and as a local business as well. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I like that. I like the idea of people trying to make more partnerships like that, but this is just one of those small ways that we as the collective do.
Right.
But coffee in general, yeah, lots and lots of coffee.
So what's your coffee gonna be?
What's my coffee going to be?
Yeah. How do you take your coffee?
Well,
What's
man,
the Rachel coffee routine?
you know, right now at home, it's the Nespresso and the little aero foamer. Oh, I can't remember what it's called, but it's a magnet spinning thing. It looks like a coffee grinder, but you pour milk in. When the milk comes out, it's hot and there's like an inch of foam, which I love.
Yeah.
So I'm a big like foam person, not like whipped cream or anything like that, but I try a lot of coffees. My favorite coffee that I will never, ever, ever, ever forget, and I've had one that was moderately close on a beach in LA, but it was Starbucks. I don't know if you remember this, but the Mocha Valencia,
Hmm.
it was it was chocolate and orange.
Interesting.
And the chocolate used to be darker. So I worked at Starbucks many, many, many years ago in college. And the chocolate was a darker chocolate. It's more sort of like a milk. It's not totally milk chocolate now at Starbucks, but anyway, this was the best thing in the world.
Is that in the
Syrups
coffee
change and all
beans
of
or
that.
is that in the syrups?
No, it was the chocolate. It was espresso, like a mocha with
Gotcha.
this orange, this like, I don't know, it was a really like pungent orange syrup. And I've tried different versions of it in different places.
You're just gonna have to order all of them and start making them at
Yeah,
home. See if you can find it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But that's a dessert
Yeah.
coffee. Like that's a special coffee. Otherwise, it's essentially like a latte or like the other term is a misto or a cafe au lait.
A hint of milk.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like half coffee, half milk.
Right.
Yeah, I could kind of nerd out on some of the coffee things. We had to do a lot of coffee testing when I was a Starbucks barista.
Yeah.
A
I mean, I think
lot.
a lot of people give Starbucks crap because they consistently, or I don't know if this is true, but people think it's like consistently burnt so that there's that consistent taste.
It's a
And
yeah,
if that's true either way, like they still are really good at offering a consistent experience anywhere you go
yeah,
to a Starbucks, right? And
yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we like to support Coffee Bar. And before that, we
Mm-hmm.
used to do Woodfire Roasted, which is another roaster in town.
Yep. Yep.
And
There's a
yeah.
Hub
Hmm.
roasts theirs. That's another local.
Yeah, I
I
think
feel
in
like we're
Reno we have like a
missing
pretty good
somebody.
scene of our of coffees, and even our. I was talking about this earlier today. Like our bar scene as well. It's like
Yeah.
a lot of people who know their cocktails, know their whiskeys and their
Mm-hmm.
tequilas and so forth. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, there's like Reno Coffee, and a few others in town. So
Yeah. Yep.
Magpie,
Magpie. That was
yeah.
the other one I was trying to remember. Yeah, there's quite a few. But yeah, just, I do, I admit, Rachel, am a Starbucks coffee drinker at times, but I try to find a local spot first. And what I hate is when you try and you find a local spot and everything looks really good. And then you get this thing back where it's like,
A little too fancy,
older. No, they gets all
or not as
just,
fancy.
oh yeah, it's like old coffee and there
Yeah,
was like milk, maybe non-fat. I can't, yeah.
I think that
Ugh.
that tends to be like a local spot where it's like someone who really likes coffee decided to retire, and they didn't have any business
Yeah.
opening a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So, uh, yeah,
But
you gotta
one
get
of the
the Costco ground coffee, and just it's got coffee in it. But
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's one of those things that I decided when I think it was last year, maybe the year before that. It's been like a 3-year journey. First, I decided enough with the cheap wine.
mm-hmm.
I'm going to make sure that when we go camping, I have at least one nice bottle of red because when it's at night and it's cold, I want a good bottle of red,
Yeah.
right? Like white wine, I tend to go cheap. I mean, we drink cheap wine anyway, but camping, I'm like, I'm going to treat myself and really enjoy
So
this
you're
with
like,
the
oh no, that's
fire.
not for dinner at
No, no,
home. That's the camping one.
that's camping wine. And then I went into I think it was like whiskey. We decided to start bringing like nice whiskey so we could enjoy. I think it was my sister that started that. But last year was coffee. I
Mm.
was always getting just, cheap coffee that was pre-ground and all this. And I realized, wait a second, what is the thing I do in the morning? Like I sit and then I enjoy my coffee and I can enjoy it outside. There's nothing I have to do. I'm camping. So I like indulge in
Yeah.
good coffee. I haven't like found one that I love yet, but I just keep buying the most expensive bags, hoping that will solve it.
This for me, this is like at least over the years that we've had the collective, we've collected a lot of very specific methods of making coffee, but they don't get used
Yeah.
anymore. And I think this
Yeah.
ties into the DIY, where one day those cabinets in the kitchen are going to go.
Yeah.
And when they do, I want to do open shelves and like just have an entire wall of coffee making things, because I think people will use them if they see them. But we've got
Mm-hmm.
Vietnamese drip
Yep.
coffee, we've got the
Mocha
AeroPress, the Mocha
mocha pot.
Pot, the
Yep.
regular French
Aeropress.
press,
French
pour over.
press.
It's just been, I mean, there are a
Yeah.
lot of things where people have moved out of, and they're like, we don't
Mm-hmm.
want this, so we don't want to take this with us. They're all manual ways of making coffee, but some people want to, have that ritual in the morning, and we've got all
Yep.
the stuff for it. And
Yep.
I hate the cabinets, so let's rip them out. Let's put something else up.
DIY.
So it'll make it look more open. It'll look so good. So
Yes, it will.
but
It truly
actually,
will.
IKEA is selling a new system for kitchens that I'm really drawn to, for replacing the shelves that
Oh.
we have now above the coffee system. So I'll have to share those with you later.
Oh.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah, we have a whole coffee. It's
we have a
interesting because
coffee room
when
more than a kitchen.
we do, we really do. It's like there's the milk holder, otherwise known as a fridge,
Hmm.
but everything else is here.
Yeah.
We've got about 3 different types of coffee stirring spoons. That was one of the first purchases I made when I started at the collective, and I don't know how it happened. I am sure they sent me the wrong spoon, but then the number matched, but I mismeasured, and when they sent the spoons, they're about that like they're shorter than your finger. They're
Yeah.
like espresso itty. They're so
We'll have to
tiny.
get into the different kinds of coffee cups and things too. We'll have
Oh
space for
yeah.
it. We'll have space for it.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and then we have an entire, this will be for a future episode, but we used to have a whiskey club and we have an entire cabinet full of whiskey glasses. So that might have to
Yes.
come back this winter, I think.
Those are
That'll
some
be,
beautiful whiskey glasses. What, they're tulips or
they're,
bulb
yeah,
or
tulip nosing glasses.
nosing glasses? I did see something online about coffee tasting glasses, but they look like the Stella Artois
Mm.
glass, that like Belgian.
Yeah, there's probably a reason for that shape,
Yeah,
just like all things.
right.
But cool. All right.
The
So
nose bouquet.
our last one, which I know we can talk about at great length, is clients. Overrated
Mm-hmm.
or underrated? This one we're going to kind of let each of us define it as we want. It's not that the clients themselves are underrated or overrated, but
Right.
just, whether it's client services, doing client consulting, we can
Mm-hmm.
each kind of take this on our own definition, I guess.
Yeah, I think when I was thinking about this topic, to me, what came up was, how could I be a good client? So, the things that I learned over the years when I was freelancing, and then when I worked for an agency and we were clients, but then also working at a museum at a space where we hired, to be,
So you
we
were
were
the
the
client.
client,
Yeah.
right? So, looking at it from those different perspectives and trying to take in the things I learned by being the provider and how I could be a better client in that way. And some of the things, a lot of the stuff that it talks about online is very kind of hustle culture, like be the best you can be, go above and beyond, treat every client like they're your most important client. I think that's a huge, like, pitfall, because what happens is if you start treating every client like they're your most important, you will, whether you do it consciously or subconsciously, you either burn out, or
Yeah.
you will start categorizing and you'll start pushing to the back the ones that don't, that don't pay as much. That's kind of their value. A lot of times, like, that's the value structure, right? So if you go at it like everyone's the most important, everyone is equally as important, and you don't set the right expectation, I think that's a huge part of, I don't know, I was just kind of going down that rabbit hole of expectations and how to be a good client, and knowing where you are. I'd rather know where I am on the totem pole than thinking, oh my God, like, we're spending 5 grand with you. That means, like, we must be their biggest client ever, without realizing, like, that's actually a really small amount for this company, however it looks.
Mm-hmm.
But that was,
Yeah.
yeah, that was my take.
Yeah, I would say being a client and or working with clients teaches you how to be a better of each, right? And so, like you just
Mm-hmm.
said, I would say that one of the best things that I've learned is about the boundaries and communication. Like, over communicate, but also over communicate the boundary of, because it's not even a fault
Yeah.
of the client, but a lot of people like to make jokes. There's so many memes and jokes in freelancing about scope creep,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that kind of stuff, where usually it happens because you allow it, and so it's not that it's not allowed, it's that there needs to be a process for it and communication about it. And in the development world, what I've found more often than not is that developers as freelancers is really a challenging thing to hire for, because if a developer is late or gets stuck on something or doesn't know how to do something, they tend to
Mm-hmm.
disappear. And that was definitely true in like the WordPress and Drupal and all that
Right.
world, is that people would disappear. And then, or, and I've done this a few times, they'll do this like uh, all nighter to just get it done for the
Oh,
client,
yeah.
and then you're burnt out the next day, and then the client's like, oh, is that all that you got done? And then you kind of, not too
Mm-hmm.
stoked with them, and they're not stoked
Mm-mm.
with you, and you also haven't slept. It's not a good, it's not a
Yeah.
good cycle. And there's always that temptation of like, I'll catch up or anything like that. But it's better to
Right.
communicate, over communicate, let them know that something's going wrong, and whether or not that needs to be a change order on the project, or that you're gonna eat it because it's your fault, right? And that's fine.
Right.
But that's
Mm-hmm.
up to you. It
Mm-hmm.
might mean that something needs to leave the scope because, hey, this is going to take longer than we thought. So
Mm-hmm.
I know some people who do fixed bid projects, people who do time and materials. It's across the board. So I
Right.
think doing client work can be really rewarding. I'm going to put this in the underrated category for me. I
Mhm.
think a lot of agencies, like you said, get burnt out and they feel there are points. It's like a roller coaster where you feel like it's overrated. Um, but there is a way to do it, and typically most of the people that I know that are doing it really well, they're not doing it by themselves anymore. They have a support system, whether it's
Yeah.
something as simple as like the collective, or even having a team, virtual assistants, project managers, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there is, I mean, I don't know, maybe this is showing my age, but there's so much more to understand and to learn. If you're, I mean, just client management, all the different platforms that you could use to just communicate with people on.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much more to learn. And if you're not communicating, if you're not, for lack of a better word, I want to say, like, if you're just not being human and admitting a mistake, or, hey, we need to slow down so we can all catch up, type of a thing,
Yeah.
that ends up harming everybody, not just the project, but both, the
Yeah.
client and the hire. And yeah.
Which is hard. I mean, when you're new, there's a tendency to underprice and try to over
Mm-hmm.
deliver. And sometimes you might need
Mm-hmm.
to. But
Right.
if you underprice it, there's a reason why the person you're competing against has priced it so much higher. It's one of the reasons why I really don't like RFPs, because some entities, like
Yeah.
government entities, have to go with the lowest price, and some
And
companies can eat that and they do it on purpose as like a way to get
mhm.
the relationship. Some people don't realize that they're going to be in hell for a really long time if they didn't scope it out well enough, because
Yep.
you agreed to it, and you don't get to change it. So I try to be very, very open. And I think the other thing is, if you're freelancing, if you're doing client work, you're probably a freelancer. It's not always the case. If you're at an agency, you're probably not a freelancer, but you might be working
Mm-hmm. Right.
like as an independent contractor or whatever, is to
Mm-hmm.
be sure that your price has all of your quote unquote like portable benefits built in, right? Your healthcare, your insurance, your LLC,
Yeah.
your healthcare, all that stuff that you're paying for on your
Mm-hmm.
own is overhead that needs to be reflected in your prices, not just
Right.
I would say your rent and how much it costs for you to live is all the rest of it, right? So
Right. Right.
definitely
Right.
think about those things.
Right. Exactly. And it's, I don't, that that made me think about who our clients are as the Reno Collective. And our clients are going to be changing when we start to, when you start seeing no, certain mandates that are lifting and precautions that are lifting and people feeling safer. um, our clientele is going to change, because we will still have people that are freelancers working on their own and wanting a space to work, but then also more people who are remote employees, because we've already seen,
Mm-hmm.
we've heard them coming across the California Nevada border, and they're all working remote. Not all, but there's a lot more remote employees that are
Yeah.
coming over, and so meeting their needs. But as their clients, as they are clients of ours, let's say, because they're members, right? We also have the ability to communicate with them how they stay with me, how they can communicate to their employer the importance of things like co-working,
Yeah.
or all the overhead things that they're not able to do in a beneficial way from home, or like the most effective way by working from home is to include those elements as um, part of the payment, part of the getting a stipend or something like
Yeah.
that for co-working and such. So yeah, it client is such a, I guess you're always a client somewhere. You're either, I mean, you're kind of both
Yeah. Well, in our
constantly.
case, we offer a service, so it's very similar, right, with the collective. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll probably have to break up our three part series in a future episode and just do just like what we see as like the future of work and co-working,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of topics there that we can talk about and we're seeing. And we've
Yeah.
always had remote employees. I think we're just going to definitely see more of it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the things that we've been kind of beating the drum for over a decade is finally
Right.
happening, right? Like
Yeah.
I think ours and many, many other co-working spaces for a long time, our tagline was the future of work. And
Right.
even before COVID, we kind of changed that to be like the future of work is already here. And now it's like, well, it was like forced on so many people. And there's also people who haven't yet experienced, I guess, haven't gotten bored with the novelness of work from home. Like most of our people who come to us, it's because they have the ability to work from home,
Mm-hmm.
and they got to that point where they just needed that separation, and
Yeah.
works very well for the all that in between work and life. Is that you need to kind of have that in between, that boundary, and
Absolutely.
so we can definitely talk about that at length in the future,
Yeah.
because we're seeing a lot. I'm seeing a lot in the real estate world, the develop like just like developers, other co-working spaces, really big co-working
Mm-hmm.
spaces in other cities. The
Yeah.
WeWorks. If you haven't watched the WeWork documentary on Hulu, highly recommend. That's not what we're talking about, but it's worth a
Right.
watch.
It's a fascinating story.
Yeah,
That is,
exactly.
yeah, that
So
whole, I mean, just as a business in general and a lesson to
some good things
investors
on not
and
to do.
yeah.
Things not to do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think, we're going to see there's going to be a growth of remote employees that have coworkers in town.
Yeah.
Like remote can be 2 miles from my house. Like we gave up our office. We're now all remote, but we all live in the same city. Or remote being, from the Bay Area or from Chicago and working here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got a member who did trucking, like
Yeah.
did all the books for a trucking company that was in North Dakota, and but they were based here, wanted
Yeah.
the lifestyle that Reno
And some
provided.
of
So
those
yeah,
companies are getting rid of their offices and paying for co-working. They're doing
right.
stipends. They're increasing
Mm-hmm.
wages because they don't have to pay for the office. And
Mm-hmm.
like the coffee, everything from the coffee to the conference rooms and all that stuff that we offer is stuff that you don't have to worry about yourself. And so that's
Yeah.
stuff for us to think about too as we
Yeah.
reopen and get it all ready to go. So
We'll shoulder that burden for you. We'll worry about mopping the
you don't
floors
think
so you
about it
don't have
until
to.
you don't think about it until the coffee's empty, right?
Oh God. And then, oh,
I'm not
let me
saying I'm
tell you what
not even
happens.
you, but I mean, at home you're like, oh, coffee, how hard can it be?
Oh, this is
But
so true. No, I have been the recipient of many very forlorn looking coworker faces as it's announced. Yes, I know the beans are out right now, but they won't be in like 5 minutes.
yes, unending.
Yes.
We have a new button in Slack that we push for beans.
Yep.
So
Need beans now.
all right. So where can everybody find us and find the show, past episodes?
Yeah, well, you can hopefully you're watching us right now on either Twitch or YouTube, which is where we broadcast live. All of our past episodes, and we are on episode 34 today. So all of our past episodes are neatly packed on YouTube, and you can peruse them at your leisure. But you'll find us on all of the socials. Oh, well, the ones that count. Those socials, we're not doing TikTok, sorry. But then you can also find us at renocollective.com online. And we will have more information as we get closer and closer to sort of opening up a bit more about opportunities for co-working here with us at the Reno Collective.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Rachel.
much. Thanks. Good night.
See ya.